Hey everybody, Ted Forbes here, and welcome back to The Art of Photography. This has been a huge week. I just got back from New York City the day before yesterday, and it was amazing. I went up there to do phase 2 on this Harold Feinstein project. Many of you saw the videos that I did while I was in New York. Everything was great. It was really busy. I worked really hard the whole time I was there, but I'm really happy with what we got. And one person in particular that I did some interviews with was Howard Greenberg, who owns Howard Greenberg Gallery, is an amazing figure in photography, and we had a discussion that ran the gamut of everybody from Saul Leiter to Vivian Mayer to everything in between, the fine art world. And I think that there's a lot of content there that I'd like to play with putting in the show. Well, obviously we talked about Harold Feinstein as well, and that stuff will go into the documentary, but there's a lot that I'm going to be putting into the show too. Now, YouTube does have a little bit of a process that I have to go through with getting my footage approved if you shoot at their studio, which we did, but I'm not worried about it, and we should be getting that stuff up in the next few weeks. So anyway, look for that. I want to get on to the architectural book giveaway here, and we do these book challenges every couple weeks, and we pick a theme. If you're new to the show, we pick a theme. People will submit their work onto Twitter related to the theme, and we use a hashtag, which is #AOPBG. I would suggest you head over there if you haven't. Use a search for that, or I'll link in the show notes as well, and see the work people are submitting. There's some wonderful work that people are putting into this. I'm going to change some things with the book challenges moving forward, and there's just a couple little notes I want to make. First of all, a lot of people are participating, which that's a nice problem to have. I want people to participate, but that means it's a lot more work for me to cull through, and it takes me a little while to do it. So I apologize if that's been a little bit of a wait for you guys. What I want to do is streamline this in the future so we can have a better turnaround, probably limit it to 1 image per person, just because we had 3 this time, and I think everybody put in 3 images, so there's 3 times the entries. The other thing that bothers me a little bit about this, and I don't know really what to do about this, is, doing a competition out of this. Art is not a competitive sport. It's not like football or baseball or something, or gymnastics, where you're trying to find the best at something. Art is more subjective than that, and it's different things to different people. And so the whole idea of a competition and picking a winner is kind of hard. I don't really know another way to do it, because you want to have incentive for people to enter, but just know that if your image wasn't picked for this, it doesn't mean it was a bad image, or it didn't mean I didn't like it, but I had to cull it down. Now, I got this down to about 40 or so images, and I really didn't want to take any more out than that. So we're going to look at a lot of images today, and I want to congratulate everybody who got in. And there were some wonderful photographs that I took out for one reason or another, and I know that we need more criteria around what I'm looking for in these. And I promise we'll do that moving forward, and I'm going to change the challenges up a little bit in the coming weeks as we do it. So anyway, the best thing to do right now is go look at some images. So without further ado, here are your finalists in the AOPBG book challenge. Come on over and let's have a look. As I mentioned earlier, we've got over 40 images to get through, so I'm not going to do the same in-depth commentary that I have in the past, just because we have about double the images we've had on the other competitions that we've done. The other thing I want to mention too is the sizes on these images kind of range here, depending on how big an image people uploaded to Twitter. And so I know some of these are going to be a little small on your screen, and so if you want to see the images bigger, just go to Twitter, and then I'll link this in the show notes. But you're going to use hashtag AOPBG. Make sure that you hit all when you search for that, and you'll see all the entries. So anyway, first up we have Ben Royal, and this is really a beautiful little color composition. I like it, and Ben you can thank for all this stuff, because he actually sent us the first book that we used that started the whole book challenges, and he sent me the John Blakemore black and white book. He had an extra copy, and that was the first one we gave away. So you can you have Ben to thank for all of this. So anyway, nice image, great job. Next up, this is Tate Modern. This is TC, who is at Flaxman_ on Twitter, and really cool juxtaposition here with the wedding going on in the Turbine Hall at Tate Modern, and really lovely image. Next up, Richard Klein, and Rich has also sent me a bunch of books that we're going to be giving away, and this is a great abstract. This is a Holga image. I love the fact that we're only given enough architectural information to know that it's a structure, but it goes abstract beyond that with motion blur and all that, so really, really nicely done. Next up is Jorge Schramm, and image pretty much speaks for itself, but I love the way he calls this scarf, and you have the material on the side of the building blowing in the wind. Really cool. Great composition. Next up, one of my favorites. This is Holly Zahn, and this is so cool. I love the pattern that you get from the architecture, but you have a juxtaposition with this kind of random pattern of these figures of the window washers on the side cleaning the building. Really neat image, and you also get that sense of scale, and the fact that they're kind of floating in the air disorients that a little bit too. And it's really nicely done. Very cool. This is Matt at Matt Montgomery with no A on Twitter, and this is entry shot of this is the Pole House in Victoria, Australia. Great combination of architectural elements mixed with the nature of the beach and the ocean in this case, and this little piece of land over on the right hand side. Great textures in the clouds and the water too. It's really, really cool, and I love kind of this cobalt monochrome that we have going on. This is Florian Schmidt. This is a neat one too. It's an aerial shot, and there's 2 aerial shots that got into here, and it's a really different vantage point. And I think from this vantage point, it's a very interesting way of rendering this architecture theme. And so with this very high contrast thing that he's got going on here, and it's really interesting. It's almost infrared when you start looking at like the trees that you see in the pattern below. But your composition is made up of the greater elements and where they sit, and nothing individually. Really, really cool and just very different. So excellent job, and I love the weird monochrome with this kind of sand orange going on here too. It's really neat. This is Alex Agafidi, and this is called Contemplation. Very wonderful composition of 2 people looking at an image with the city behind. Really nice work. This is Christopher Forsyth. I like this too, with the train moving through the train station here. Nice juxtaposition of motion versus what's in focus and what's sharp. And I also like that the color is pretty much accentuated with the train, and that's it. And really, really cool. Nice image. This is John B., who has submitted alternative process images before, and I love John's work. This is a neat one, too. This is Model of Buildings, Laser Transfer on Duralar, Pastels, Gold Leaf, and it kind of has this look of birdhouses or something, almost a cubism type feel to it, but also use this strange process here. It kind of gets the lack of focus going. Really cool work. This is Zohair Salama, and really nicely done. I love the, kind of almost a Bresson type of composition here, with the way you have these leading lines that, form these angles, and then the figures placed right there with the hat and the way he's standing. Really, really cool image, cleanly done. Everything's organized well compositionally, and just really nice. This is Christopher Mozar, and what struck me about this was that it was a little interesting because the lighting is so good in this. This is a night shot and with a long exposure, and so you have motion in the clouds behind this building, but the exposure is absolutely perfect with that highlight going up the building. When you mix that with this vantage point that he's chosen where he's tilted the camera a little bit, it didn't feel like a building at first. It was almost like I thought it was a book or an abstract or something, and then you realize what it is. So really kind of cool and just very different interpretation of that, and in a very subtle way. But this is the ADAC headquarters in Munich. Very cool. Next up, I love this. This is a wonderful, a lot of personality in this composition, very playful, very cinematic. And this is Dr. Carl Quent, and obviously the architecture in this case being the Eiffel Tower and the scale with the woman that's standing in front of us and the legs. It's very cool and very quirky, and I really like that. Next up is Richard Newby, and this was very different too because this was taken in Phoenix, and this is not the kind of atmosphere I expect to see with shots taken in the Southwest, and I like that. And just kind of the way that this haze and this fog, fades off into these hills and mountains in the background. It's really, really cool and great feel to this, and unexpected when you consider the geographic location as well. This is Nadja Nyman, and I love abstracts, as you guys know, and thrown out of focus here, she says this is a view from kitchen window. And I love the fact that you can tell there's architecture involved, but it becomes kind of this interesting blurred color study with the kind of these deep yellow oranges and then the blue sky. Really, really nicely done. And I love the night feel to it, too. It's really cool. Next up is Leo Sink, and this is this Sudekian atmosphere of the light as it comes through the windows on the left-hand side, and the almost like a smoke or a dust that you get in there. And again, sense of scale because you have that one human figure right in the middle of the composition. Very cool, and I love the light on there. This is Catherine, who is at Broadology on Twitter, and I love this pyramid. It's very cool. The way that the focus is kind of ambiguous in some ways. We're not really sure what's in focus on here, but we do have sharp lines and a little bit of texture in the back. It's very different and very cool. Again, night photography, and I think this is really neat. I love the way the pyramid lights at the top too. Reminded me of Vegas, but I'm not real sure what this is. It's pretty neat. Next up is Kate Lohman, and I do want to say a few things about this image because I think what makes it work, it's just very different. And what she is described on here is New York City constructed photograph Gary's Spring Street building, the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, and a condo front door. What's cool about this is the way she's framed this up. And you have, if you're familiar with Frank Gehry's work and these bizarre, surrealistic almost exteriors made out of chrome and steel, and that juxtaposed and contrasted with the Art Deco that we see in the foreground with this frame that, more is along the lines of Frank Lloyd Wright or something of that nature. And first of all, the way the composition is divided up with this T here, and you see the symmetry of the building on either side. So it's almost like a diptych in one photo, and I really think that's cool. I think it's an interesting composition rather than putting this structure dead center and having it be totally symmetrical. Putting that off center just a little bit adds a nice feel to that, and it feels kind of like two photographs that go together. I really like that. And I love the juxtaposition of, you have in chrome, the strange Gehry structure with the building that almost looks like it's being pulled apart, with the more classic 1930s Art Deco features that you have in this structure right here. Really nicely done. And I love the way that the blue of these stairs here really contrasts and adds a nice feel color-wise. So anyway, a lot going on in that image, and I think it's really kind of cool. Elements of abstraction and then also structural at the same time. So really excellent work. I thought that one was really neat. Here's one from Naeem Ahmed, and this is a stairwell leading underground in the middle of London's financial district and Exchange Square, which is an architecturally very cool place in the world as well. I like the fact that it's obscured a little bit. Maybe it could be something else other than stairs, the way that we're lost a little bit with the focus, but it's a great composition, and I love the spiral in there as well. Next up, I love this. This is Photo Greedy. I assume done with some kind of plastic lens or toy camera. When you have an exposure that's pushed this far and everything is so high contrast, there's almost a metallic feel to some of the shapes, like where you have the arches and the people looking out. I want to say this is Los Angeles, but I'm not sure about that. I just know that there's a view that's very similar that you get of the city, and you do see the city just down here on the horizon. I think that's really wonderfully done. I love the high grain and the amazing lo-fi feel to the image. Really, really nice work. This is A Blanco, and again, a lot of you did work where you played on reflections, and this is really nicely done. It's almost surreal, and then I think the trees that are actually growing out of the building give you kind of an anchor for the reality in there, and very cool. Next up, love this one. This is Rodrigo Ferreira, and this is an old warehouse in Portugal. This, folks, is amazing. I love the maturity in this composition. Minimal in many ways. The way that we have one light source at the top that's just barely illuminating the warehouse in here. The shadows do not go too dark on this. Everything is very nicely rendered. And the only color we see in this image is up on the top, almost right-hand side as well. And I really like that. This just speaks really well. It's really hard to pull back and do compositions like this, and Rodrigo did an amazing job on this. I just love this feel to it. So excellent work. This is very cool too. This is Black Deviance. I love that we're playing with reflections again here, presumably a puddle in a street, something of that nature. But some of the weird texture you get on this too, I think makes it too. And it's definitely abstract, but we're given a lot of information that kind of makes sense and brings it around. Color use is amazing on here too. Now the colors separate nicely and none of them get in the way of one another. And really, really nice work. Really like that. This is Quentin Gregoire, and this was taken in Belgium. And again, I think the color on here is what makes this image for me. The yellows and the reds, just a little bit of green, but really the yellow and the red is what you get mostly out of this composition. And I love the fact that the light makes those fade back on the right-hand side of the image too. Really, really beautiful work. This is Paul Ezaga, and I must confess that this is one of my favorite architectural things in the world. This is in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. This is the old Bethlehem steel mill. It was a Carnegie mill that was run really up until the 1980s or so, when the decline of industry in the United States kind of got the better of it, and they closed the mill. It's abandoned now. They've turned a large chunk of it into casinos, which is, I think, a little bit unfortunate, but they're trying to rescue the economy up there. But these structures still stand, and they're amazing. This is the main furnace area that still stands in Bethlehem Steel, and this thing is like this big steel cathedral. It is just stunning when you see it in person. Anyway, nice image, and I love the fact that he chose this for the Sheeler theme, because it certainly pays a little bit of homage to Sheeler and a lot of that age of industry that was going on. The RAC titles The Mechanical Age of Power and Productivity. So very, very cool. Next up, this is Electric Possum. Very simple Polaroid photo, but I like the way your eye is led up the stairs and the interesting structure out the window. Really nice job. Nice gold toning on that too, which kind of comes off the film. Another aerial shot. This is from Andre Y. I like this. I assume it's Los Angeles. He labeled these, but these were all three of his entries, so I think this is Los Angeles. But again, with the aerial nature of this, and it's almost a tilt shift effect, but we do have some blurring of the focus in here. And again, you're just kind of presented with the pattern and shape that is defined by a city. And when you see it rendered really small like this, and I just think it's a neat image. So nice work. This is Carlos Angelica, and I love the fact that this is kind of paying tribute to very vintage photography, something like Fox Talbot or something like that. Wonderful. The style of the photograph fits the architecture, I think, and kind of that vintage mindset. Really nice. Window of an abandoned church. Excellent work. Next up, Andres Vargas, and again, we have the scale that kind of is distorted when you have things blurry like this, but I love how brash this image is, especially with these bizarre highlights that we're getting with the heavy reflections coming off the building. So it makes me think this is probably done with a plastic lens or a cell phone or something of that nature that just kind of is not in focus, but very interesting image just the same. Next up, this is Catarina Fleur, and I hope I'm saying her name right this time. Miss Fleur put this in. This is from Tate Britain, and I love this. This is a different image of the figure's not in it. The figure gives us some context, and that you can tell now it's a structure where we have some stairs, presumably on where she's descending. Really cool, and I love the high key feel to this. I love the kind of 1960s, 1970s vintage vibe that this gives off. Really neat black and white image, so excellent work. Another image, this is Philip Sa, and this is in Chicago, 2014. This is just very simple but elegant. Architecture's abstracted behind these drapes that the photograph's being made through. Really nice work. This is Phil White. This is Netherlands Waterline Bunker. Very cool. I love the symmetry that's going on, and also the contrast of the small human figure with these big stone structures, and neat image. I love it. Next up is V, aka I Heart Jap Bands, and I like this because, again, with the reflections we're playing with, and it's a nice combination of interior and exterior. We have a sense of scale. We have the little person reading the book on the lower right-hand side, so there's a lot to look at here. It's a neat image. Next up is R. Isley, and I'm sure this was intended with the architecture as well, but I love the way we're looking through the break in the walls, and these stone walls, and you're seeing the ocean in the background with the horizon line going through. Probably not an easy shot to get. I'm guessing there's a heavy light contrast that's going on, and this is very well done, so excellent work to R. Isley. This is Marcus, who is at FlashQuote on Twitter. I like this too. Presumably, we flipped this image upside down and is taken in a water reflection, but I like it, and I like that it works, and I think there's some attention that's been paid to detail here because we don't have other structures or buildings that are cluttering this, and so it's just a really weird, strange, almost wind-torn effect that we get off that building, and then also a strange sense of what's right side up and what's upside down. I love it. I think that was really well done. So it's a hotel near the Baltic Sea beach. A very classic image. This is Chris Smith put this one in. I like the division here where you have kind of a diagonal going through the middle of the composition with the negative space on the right, and these kind of Sheeler-esque plays in architecture, line and shape and contrast going on in the lower left-hand portion of the image. So excellent work. Next up, Julie Smith. I love this. What we have is New York going on here, I presume, and I love the fact that our architectural element, and this is when minimalist compositions work really well, is sitting near the edge. And so it's only occupying about maybe 5% of the composition. But the emphasis is drawn to it, and your eye is drawn to it, and that's how that works, is, it's not cluttered in the way the negative space complements it. I love the clouds with the pastel colors, presuming the sun's either coming up or going down, and really nice image, and very mature composition on that as well. I really dig it. Next up, I had to move over to Flickr for this because Twitter didn't want to play ball with me, but this is Sean Crowley, and I love this. Sean does a lot of work with burning buildings, but how random that this was so unique when you look at all the overall entries. And I love the drama that we have, architecture that's being forcibly deconstructed here, being on fire. Really cool image, and I love the colors in there. Sean does great work, and this is no exception. This is really awesome. And then finally, we have another image off of Flickr here, and this is Adam Forzaidi, I believe is how you say his name, Forzaidi. And Adam did this cool image, and he said, this isn't quite architecture, but maybe, and I'll go ahead and say it is. This is a boatyard. This is Kingsman Yacht Center, and these boats are covered with these tarps and this shrink wrap effect. But it's really cool. I love the high-key nature of this, and the composition is really defined by these little shadow points on here, and it's really beautiful. It's abstract in its own way. It's certainly in focus, but what he's done is played with the high key lighting and then these dark shadow contrasts. It's a really beautiful image. So that marks the end of our entries here, and so we've got to call on the winner. But before I do, I got to give a quick shout out to our sponsor today. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor today, who are the awesome folks over at lynda.com. If you're not familiar with lynda.com, they offer one of the most comprehensive resources for online video training that I've ever seen. I've been a member of Lynda for years, long before they were a sponsor, and I'm actually very proud to have them as a sponsor now, because I think this is a wonderful resource. And if you're interested in learning something like software, so let's say you want to learn WordPress or Excel, or if you've got questions about Photoshop, or if you want to learn topics like portrait photography, or really anything related to visual communications, they pretty much have you covered. So it's really interesting to see how they've evolved over the years from just basically doing software tutorials for graphic designers and photographers into what they have now, which is just really a complete resource for everything. If you want to learn how to code, you can do that in here. And basically, I'm going to go down to photography here so you can see. You can browse by course topics or by photography software. Let's see if I want to get photography foundations, masking, compositing, low light at night, lighting. I'll click on lighting and we'll see what they've got. And there's kind of two ways you can go with here. They've got courses in here that are collections of videos that are designed to give you a really comprehensive, complete view of a certain topic or software, whatever it is that you're looking to learn. Or you can kind of drill down by topic and just look for what you need. So if, for instance, I'm in here and I want to look at lighting and photographing still life, I can go in there. And they have courses that target really on every level of learning, so beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And so you can kind of pick something that's really useful if you're doing software stuff like Photoshop, and if you're brand new to it versus whether you're looking to do some really advanced techniques. So they really have you covered in all areas. And what's great is when you have an account, you can bookmark videos, you can mark favorites, and it really becomes a great interactive experience for learning. And lynda.com have an offer right now for Art of Photography viewers, if you're interested, where you can get 7 days of complete, unlimited access to everything on the website and see if lynda.com is something you might be interested in subscribing to. It's a great service. So what you want to do to take advantage of that is head over to lynda.com/AOP. That's Lynda with a Y, lynda.com/AOP. If you go to that link, it lets Lynda know that I sent you, and you're going to get 7 days of unlimited access to the entire website, absolutely free, and go learn something. To go look at some of their courses and see if it's useful to you. I think you're really going to like it. So once again, I want to give a major shout out to the folks at lynda.com and thank them for once again sponsoring another episode of The Art of Photography. So for the winner, I'm going to go with Sean Crowley, and I really like this image. The obvious sense of drama that you have with the burning building that's up in flames here and the smoke. But I think it's cropped well. I think it's an interesting enough composition. But I really like this because it was very bit different than anything else that we saw in here. You guys, this was a very difficult challenge to come up with finalists and a winner on, and I actually debated the winner for about several hours today and went back and forth. And finally, this is what I've decided on because I do like the fact that it is different. It is architecture, but it is not what you expect. It is the unexpected. And I think that's really the criteria it came down from me on this. This was a hard one. And like I said, we're going to change some things up moving down the road with these to try to make them a little easier on me and still give people a lot of opportunity. So kind of be on the lookout for that as we approach the next challenge. And as always, if you like this video, remember to share it with your friends, and please remember to subscribe. One of the things that we're going to do, and you want to stay up with the channel for this, is I am redoing the website, and we are going to have a part of the website where we're going to feature all the challenges we've done and the winning photos and the finalists. And so I'm working on putting that together right now. And if you want to know updates on when that's coming out, what you want to do is head over to theartofphotography.tv, theartofphotography.tv, and you can sign up for our email list there. I will also link that in the show notes. And as once again, I want to thank everybody for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Later.